Hey, what's good everyone? Brody here, and today I'm going to show you all how I produced the song I'm Sorry I Never Texted You Back by FATSE, produced by me and Taylor Morgan. So the beat started out with Taylor sending me this piano synth loop. Super chill, super beautiful, super ambient. I love that loop so much. I decided that I liked how it sounded, and I wanted to kind of make it like a faster, higher pitched, like higher energy kind of thing. He sent it to me when I was in a big kick of doing a ton of breakbeat, drum and bass kind of stuff, and I felt like the ambience of that and like emotion of it contrasted perfectly with like super chaotic drums. So what I did was I took that loop, sped it up to about 165 BPM, and pitched it up. I think three semitones. So we then get this. I'll play it at the hook section. Oh yeah, beginning here first. So pretty much what is this section here? Oh yeah, the little respace too. So I split up his loop by all the individual parts and really didn't add much new in terms of melody. I just kind of arranged it all into a structure that made sense. The only new sounds I did were in the hook. I took this sound and I made it a little more high energy just to like add more to the hook. I ran it through some shaper box, some little alter boy to pitch it up an octave and distort it, and then some compression and EQ, and got this sound. I thought it was cool. It kind of fits with the percussion, like rhythmically, and is a cool, distorted, kind of uncanny, half organic, half electronic kind of sound, which I think is sick for this kind of production. And what else did I add that was different? Just some halftime sections here on the verses. And then at the outro, I did halftime a good bit. I like to do that for an outro. I feel like it makes everything sound a little more like ambient and in the background. And it just introduces something like a little bit new. I like when the outro has something that's only in that part. It's like a what if question mark at the end of the song, you know? So yeah, that was the beat essentially. Not much going on there. I get a little bit of EQ just to kind of shape it in. Some mid-side stuff going on. And then we go to the drums, which honestly was super minimal for this one. I wanted the loop to kind of take center stage with how powerful it is. So the majority of the song is pretty much just the instrumental, or like the melodic part of it. We have nothing going on for the first half of the verse. Second half of the verse, we just have some cymbals and shaker, so like still very minimal. Then we go to the breakbeat here for the second half of the verse. So what's going on there is I have an EQ on the verse section of the breakbeat that kind of just like tames some of the higher frequencies. That way when it kicks in at the hook, it's a little bit more bright and high energy. So from that, it just kind of opens it up a little bit. And aside from that, let's see here, we have some transition-y stuff. There's this effect rack preset called Bubble Glide that I love to do on my breakbeat drums. It's a fun little like transition in or out of effect that always is pretty sick. Then I have, let's see, I'll walk through the breakbeat in general. I think that this loop I wound up putting in my drum kit, but I had pretty much just combed through a bunch of breakbeat samples that I have and find one that fits, stretch it to the tempo, and then just kind of chop it just right here in the timeline to get the exact pattern that I want. So I need the kick there. Getting the kick and snare hits. Essentially, I usually get the kick and snare hits where I want them to be, and a lot of times the rest will fall into place. Sometimes I like to do things like off-hit cymbal rolls, which I think sound really cool when they're re-triggered like that. But this one was pretty simple. Sometimes I do a bunch of compression, distortion, saturation, stuff like that, but this loop didn't really need it, so I just kind of drew this pattern out. Did the same thing for the hook. I think the one thing that's off here is I stretched the snare out, just because I wanted some glitchiness to it. When the hook comes in, I add a kick to it. The kick also my sample pack, just to give it a little more bottom end, and then I pair that with this 808 of mine as well. That I love using the Target 808. I call it the Backroad 808 in my newest drum kit as well. I love using it in breakbeat just because it's so big, powerful, very like wide in the stereo field. So it just takes up a lot of space and fits the genre really well, I think. Sometimes a more like a rap focused 808 doesn't work with the breakbeats because they're a little more mono or a different type of like saturation or like frequency spectrum, but this one's super bright and wide and fits really well in context. It looks like also with the percussion, I did a little bit of different mixing on the shaker. Yeah, the shaker's a bit louder on the hook. There's a tambourine that I add halfway through. That I also, so both of these samples I am running through Pixelator. It's like a bit crusher. I like to very gently use it because I find that it doesn't make it sound bit crushed, or it only slightly does, but then it also just kind of changes the timbre of the shaker to make sense, versus like just pitching it down or adding an EQ on it. It kind of shapes it a bit. Going to Shaper Box, this preset, it's the one of the stutters. It just fits the breakbeat pattern super well. Let's see. Yeah, aside from that, yeah, we got the cymbals and shakers. We got the drums, small and then bigger, 808, and the kick. In the outro, I believe I throw halftime, or no, I put the whole breakbeat on that Bubble Glide preset on Effect Rack on the outro, just to make it kind of spacey and ambient. Yeah, and then to top it off, I have just a little bit of transition stuff. There's the Taylor Morgan White Noise Downfall at the beginning of the hooks and the intro. Threw some crystallizer on it and also dampen the highs a bit. And then I have my own cymbal riser and crash. Very simple, but I think something like a riser like that can be just a good way to like add anticipation to a moment. Yeah, so that's essentially it for the beat. I'll go through my master chain real quick because I've been kind of expanding what I do on the master of my beats lately. So before anything, this one's hitting at pretty much right around 0. Clips a little bit sometimes, but it's hanging right at that 0 mark, and I run it through JST clip around. I usually go about this far into it. Obviously, I'll change it per song, per beat, what's fitting. And by the way, this is just what I do for my beats. This isn't how I master a full song, just how I get the beats like compressed and saturated and clipped the way I like them to. So this adds some clipping and it just kind of limits the whole thing. Keeps any actual peaking from happening. Through Soothe On, just because it was a little bright in the highs. Added some Radiator. I like to go from JST clip into the Radiator with the mix knob about here, because I think it adds a little more grit to the 808s when they kick in. If I really push it, you can hear the flavor of it. And then I pull it back to where it's not as extreme. I have an EQ here. So the way that I mix my beats, I make the 808 in the low end really prominent, run it through all this clipping. That way it kind of naturally compresses and colors the whole track. And then the outcome of that is sometimes the bass is too loud for my liking and it's too overpowering, but I want it to hit that hard going into the chain. That way it like grabs the rest of the beat and compresses everything else too. So then I'll just go through and pull back a little EQ afterwards. And then at the very end, I throw on a limiter just to make sure there's no clipping, no peaking, anything like that. So yeah, essentially that's it. Very simple beat. I really didn't have to do much to get this one sounding great. I feel like it's a lesson in like less is more, and you want to service the loop, service the vocalist, service like the main idea of the song. And I think with this loop being as beautiful and open as it is, me arranging it the similar way to kind of let that shine and let there be moments of like emptiness. And I think it really lended to this song working as well as it did and fitting FATSE on it so well. Yeah, love how this one turned out. Big shout out to FATSE and Taylor. I'm so stoked on this song. If you made it this far in the video, I appreciate you a ton. Hope this was useful to you and interesting. And if you have any questions or anything, feel free to comment below or hit me up on Instagram or Twitter and I'll get back to you. So yeah, good shit. Thank you. Appreciate you all. Peace out.